What is up, foul players, and welcome back to OWL by the Numbers, keeping you updated and in the know for all things Fantasy Overwatch League. I am your host, Tumbly Drunk. At tonight, on episode 52, we're going to be looking ahead at this weekend's games as we are, after that little break period after the summer showdown, which, Ramesses, I have to say, everyone kind of went in and expected a very specific outcome in both regions, neither of which actually came to fruition. So when we're talking
Mhm.
about like the unexpected, it just wasn't with the results, but also with some kind of like unusual players that were near the top end of the scoring this week that have normally kind of just fallen kind of like in the middle of the pack or just essentially been forgotten about. So it was an all around interesting week, both from a league perspective as well as fantasy perspective.
Yeah, really fun tournament series, and I agree. I think we made our pretty solid predictions who was going to take it all away, and we were wrong on both counts. Although I think we got one of the matchups perfectly set, and really great run from Paris in the NA bracket. I think hitting the right meta at the right time, all the pieces really coming together for those guys, and then with the charge in APAC, you see a similar story, but I think you also see you see a really big step up in performance from, of course, Krong and Happy, but even like Eileen had a really, really good tournament playing mostly the Genji. And
Hmm.
then credit also to Chara for the Guangzhou charge because he went and actually his brig was really, really good that entire tournament as well. I think was definitely something that kept them in competition. So lots of fun Overwatch to watch. As far as the stats go, it really kind of depended on what matches you watched, because I know a couple weeks ago you and I even said that we were putting all of our money, like points wise, on the Florida versus Houston matchup.
Hmm.
And I'll as somebody who did that didn't really work. Houston took that game pretty decisively 3-1. And so if you ended up picking mostly Florida players, you bottomed out a little bit. It seemed more that your only top players, I think, were kind of cherry picked from a bunch of different places. If you were lucky enough to be able to get any of the Paris players who played a full 6 maps, or any of the Guangzhou or Shanghai players that played a full 6 or 7 maps, you ended up with a really big haul on points. But if you played anybody normal, it was a really mixed bag.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely kind of showed in the stats too. But before we kind of like go over how some of the players performed at like the position level, I want to quickly go over the twit longer that was posted by
Mhm.
John Spector in regards to just the overall like state of the Overwatch League and kind of like the updates that we have seen kind of like throughout the year, because it does talk a little bit about the tournament structure that we've been seeing. We do know that we do have like one more tournament that is set. We got like the whole like qualifying stages starting this
Yeah,
weekend. I honestly can't remember the terminology they use for that
it's
tournament.
the countdown cup,
So we're counting down to the playoffs. Like,
I think. And it's so there's it's another one of these Blizzard statements that I think we are all very aware of, where there's a lot of info that doesn't actually mean anything.
mhm.
So, but what we can definitely say for sure is that they've really enjoyed the tournament results, and it's given a nice boost in viewership. It's not the saving amazing grace where all of a sudden we're back up to 100K, but it's given a nice little boost to viewership where you're typically up 50 over 50K viewers. And they've recognized that for the long term it makes the format more exciting to watch when there's actual stakes, plus you get to consistently see good teams play. So they like the format right now, and they're going to be looking at what they do with it next year. It is going to be it'll be weird to think though, because they want to do something similar next year, but they have to try and work out how they do homestands, if we can even do homestands next year, because
Right.
it is very likely that most of the United States is still going to be not having large public events. I know Philadelphia came out and said that they're banning all major gatherings until I think the 21st of February, 2021.
Oh dang.
So unless they have a bunch of the games unless they start off in South Korea or China or Europe, I it's hard for me to see homestands happening the same way we assumed that they would next year as well.
Right. Yeah, and they also kind of like touched up on how they're going to be dealing with the playoffs this season as well. Just due to everything going on, and they basically said like outright like, hey, like all 20 teams are going to have a path to make it into the playoffs, which is basically similar to what we've already been seeing with these monthly tournaments here so far.
Mm.
And given like the state of the league right now and seeing that we're not just seeing like the same matchups when it comes to these tournaments. I think that's the right direction to take because we have seen a couple of, Cinderella runs. We have seen those upsets. So it's definitely made for some pretty compelling storylines and like going throughout the season where, the Overwatch League, despite what some people are saying commentary wise, is not actually scripted. So that doesn't mean that your Boston Uprising or your Washington Justice teams are suddenly going to make a miracle run when all the chips are on the table at that point. But it at least encourages them to know like, hey, if we just piece a couple of things together, we might be able to get our foot in the door there at this point when they've just kind of been sheltered for so long because they haven't really been accruing a lot of wins so far this season.
Yeah, it's the last chance for the Outlaws to get into the playoffs. I'm interested to see what they do. I know they've been teasing an announcement soon, and I would imagine we'd get it likely next week. I don't know. It's Tuesday, which means that typically most of the Overwatch news drops either today or tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure we'll find out within a week or so. The other thing that they wanted to touch on was hero pools, and that John Spector has said that I believe the current system is responsible for a lot of the fluidity we have seen in the meta recently, and that rotating hero pools every few weeks, coupled with balance changes, has worked well. Earlier in the paragraph, I think it was it. Earlier in the paragraph, he said that they believe this is the best iteration of the system so far. And as we plan for 2021, we will take another look at hero pools together with other related format decisions. And it's kind of the like how much variation is too much variation thing, because if you're able to split it into this tournament format, you can make the argument then that you don't need hero pools because there's enough variation as far as like how patches work related to the tournament. But at the same time, I get concerned with let's say you have a team that does very very well with a meta, kind of like how LA Valiant did, I think, for the second tournament or the first tournament, where they were crushing on that meta for the 3 weeks it was in hero pools, or 2 weeks it was in hero pools, and then once the hero pools were gone, they had really nowhere to go because everyone else could play comfort picks that already beat that comp. So they're still working on it. We'll see what they do. I'm sure it'll have some sort of presence next year, but I think they've learned the lesson that they need to have it be for longer amounts of time, just simply for players to actually be able to prepare for it.
Yeah, and we haven't really been sitting on a very specific meta for that long either, just due to the way that they kind of, tweak the hero pools all together here. But at the end of the day, it really just depends on, is the balance updates to Overwatch going to be patched quick enough to have that constant fluidity throughout the Overwatch League season. And I have to say, like, for the most part, when we've been looking at the recent balance changes within the game, a lot of the stuff that they've been throwing on the experimental card have actually been getting patched through to live servers very quickly. And of course, there is kind of like that 2-week delay from when things hit the live servers to when we actually get to see those changes coming into play within the Overwatch League. And we saw how drastic things can kind of have a shift there because the Genji buffs got patched through. Genji was all over the Summer Showdown, and like, you didn't really get to see him throughout most of the year outside of like maybe Hoxel once in the blue moon, but like it wasn't like a meta pick by any stretch of the imagination for the vast majority of this season. So
yeah,
I don't think we've really seen the point with this current system where there is like one de facto like best composition. There's like iterations of similar compositions with a tweak here or there, whether it's a DPS or making a swap in regards to one of the support picks. But we're not always seeing that mirror match, which is something that we had been seeing in the past.
Yeah, sorry, I slowed down for a second. So, uh, it'll be interesting to see what happens going on. We'll talk about the hero pools and the patch in a little bit because certain tinkerings might make the Genji a little bit more obsolete. I do love that. I love this game, but one of the things that always irks me is that the minute any character is good for a span of 2 weeks or longer, like you get the Blizzard comment boards immediately lighting up like, "Oh my gosh, Genji is too OP. You need to nerf him. Like,
Hmm.
delete Genji from the game." And it's like, yes, because the only thing that makes Genji decent and like high level play is you have to throw like 3 ults into powering him.
Right.
It's like, well, you have to use like 3 ults to stop him. Like, yeah, you have to use like 3 ults to make sure he can even get a kill. So,
Yeah, throw him in armor pack just so he can solidify the kill too, and make sure he
oh, dude,
survives before he's pulling out the blade.
yeah. And a little mini news thing to like, not even worth more than 2 minutes. As I'm sure most Overwatch League followers are aware, Guangzhou Charge just signed Crystal to a 2-way contract to play on their contenders team.
And that was also
And
with Wea. Wea also got moved to two
yes,
way.
we is also 2-way. And full disclosure, like I think Nero, like from the Guangzhou Charge, has even gone and said publicly through Discord that he is a not an insurance policy necessarily, but he is somebody they're keeping more for season 3
Hmm.
to see if he like to prove if he's genuine, that he really wants to be a part of this, if he's really committed to making up for what he's done in the past. So, and they're keeping him for season 3 in case Happy, Eileen, or Nero decide that they want to go somewhere else.
Right.
So that nothing really to note there. D Hulky, congrats, you are proven correct that he does have an actual fantasy rating now. But
Well, we'll see if he actually comes into play, which is highly doubtful at this point.
oh, highly doubtful. I mean,
Um,
he's most likely still in China as well instead of South Korea. So
he
it's
is.
not like he's going to be playing with the team. Although that didn't stop what they're showing. Cruz is still playing in Jersey with
Hmm.
like whereas the Toronto Defiance up still in Canada, and then
Right.
what was it? That poor fielder, playing from Korea from 4 a.m. till noon.
Well, it didn't stop him from winning a monthly title there, so must be doing
Poor guy.
something right.
Well, you felt so bad because you watched Paris win, and they're like jumping together and celebrating. And they're so excited, and then there's Fielder just staring at his computer like half awake, like poor guy. But it's probably a good time for us to go into the performance report for Summer Showdown.
Absolutely. So very interesting stuff here. Some names that we honestly don't get to talk about a whole lot. So let's take a look at the top 3 damage performances. And I will note, like, I kind of slipped and didn't get like the Royale up this past week, so I don't know what the cost though for these players
I entered
was.
the Royale. I entered. It
uh,
was just me, so I win, but I entered.
okay. So I actually had Baby Bay coming in as the second highest score of the week, but top 4 damage. Atlanta Reign DPS at 173.3. I mean, I would say the Keen is back, but I know there was a lot of murmurs about that being his last tournament. Like, has
Yeah,
there been any follow up to that? Because I haven't really been paying too much attention to it.
we haven't heard anything. I know right after they lost, like damn, like really sucks. Wanted this to like really wanted to win it all.
Hmm.
Like this might be my last tournament, and who knows if he's memeing or if he's trying to make bait and trying to drive it interest because he does play a decent amount of Valorant. It is funny because Corey, who's now on FaZe, actually, like kind of threw a joke, and I'm like, oh hey, like join FaZe with me, and it's like nah. So we'll see. I don't really know with Baby Bay. I really don't know what to think is going to go on with him. I know he did participate in the Fran Overwatch Community Cup. At least he like made like a short video cameo, still in like his
Okay.
rain gear and everything. So I don't know. I can't really make any sort of statement on it, but he's Baby Bay is also really streaky as far as performances,
Oh
as
yeah, big time.
fantasy wise this year. So it was an uncharacteristically big, I think, turnout because they played. I have to remember who they played, but from what I remember, like it was a pretty close, like a 3-2 game.
Hmm.
Same with number 2, which is Agilities,
Yeah, and
who
the point differential between the top and second is actually
or
pretty significant.
it was Toronto. That's right, I think. Which Toronto had like a nice run here as well.
Hmm.
Uh, into agilities out here with 112.6 points. I don't even think we saw Surefour at all this game, but we forget that, for as many gripes as we have for agilities on like a lot of other heroes, his Genji's really, really good still.
It just depends on, one, if he's in the server room on Gibraltar, and two, if his half brother Agilites is, playing online for
True.
him.
But yeah, the 3-2s are the big wins for you. And then number 3 was Ons from San Francisco Shock with 108.3 points. Really, really like Ons these last couple of weeks has really made an impact on that hit scan role for San Francisco. And again, this is another 3-2, right? Where this is them going the distance with Paris Eternal, really getting pushed to the limit there as well. In fact, if I remember correctly, I don't even think that might have happened against the Washington Justice. It might be from that matchup, but I know because he's still in there sharing time with Striker in certain maps as well.
Yeah, and despite all that flexibility, the Shock did get upset, even though, like, I don't know, I'd say like 90% of the brackets had the Shock winning it all on the NA side. Mm-hmm. But, very uncharacteristic to see someone who traditionally only plays snipers, posting 100+ points on any given week. So that was a pretty cool surprise.
Man, you just farm damage points off of the dynamite. That's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Going into the supports, number 1, and again from that Toronto Atlanta game, you had Fire with 134.2 points coming in for the Massa. I think they like his Baptiste more. No, they like his Brig, more than Massa's Brig, which is really interesting. Boombox, number 2 for Philadelphia with 128.1 points. Really, really good Baptiste performance. And then number 3, our first APAC player that we've actually covered, Li Jaegon on Shanghai Dragons with 117.4 points. So it's interesting because you have 2 main support players on here over the flex support. But when you're playing Brig and you're getting the damage and the kills and the healing, you have a lot of revenue streams to get points from.
It's way more additive than, just having like the aura based healing with like the Lucio in that case. But luckily APAC kind of held its own in regards to like the tanks. They actually have all 3 of the top 3 performances there, which I think is pretty interesting. So I'm actually a Fearless topping out for the Dragons at 102, followed by Rio from the Charge, who honestly, like, he's been very consistent getting like top 3 performances on the roll, and he's like someone that's been like middle of the pack, like I think 50 cost, basically like on a week-to-week basis here for the Draft Royales. And he had 79.4, followed by Marvel from the Dynasty at 76.7. Now, you're looking at this and you're like, well, gee, that's really not a ton of points. And, you're right. But you're not really spending, like, a surplus of your currency on the tank picks. And, when we're looking at, like, the double barrier compositions, which was pretty prominent throughout the Summer Showdown, there's a lot of Orisa and a lot of Sigma play, and, the Orisa throughput in regards to, like, the damage and the kills has not been that great. There seems to be, like, a fairly even split when we talk about, like, the points between the Sigma players and the main tank players. So it doesn't seem like there's any, like, jockeying for position, but there's really not any one particular role that is really flourishing over the others. So the tank is kind of just like a who's who. Like, you are looking for more of your consistent players. And, out of all of them lately, Rio's definitely been the one who has been, put in, not necessarily, like, the best performance, but he's been in the top 3, I think, at least 3 straight weeks at this point.
Yeah. Well, and Fearless is at 102 because they got to have an extended game on, because he got to spend some extended time on Winston as well for Gibraltar. And when he's just racking up those Primal Rage kills, I think he gets his Winston's going to get a decent amount of points as well. So APAC is, I think we were learning that APAC is consistently the highest the best bang for your buck as far as tanks go.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the current week. That's week number 24. So we do have our look at the hero pools that will be in play for the next 2 weeks. So out of the rotation for the damage characters, we have Mei and Widowmaker out. For tank, Orisa is not playable, and then we have Anna for the band's support for the week. So, you're looking at that and you're like, all right, we have seen a lot of double barrier, but, we could just kind of like go back to seeing like the Reinhardt and the Sigma variation to that. And then, really the big question is what is going to be happening to the Genji pick rate this week? Because we did see a lot of, the nano boosts happening. You did see a lot of the halts to set up the Dragon Blades as well. And, like, we're not really going to get, like, that snowball composition, obviously, like, with the May Reaper, but that's kind of, like, fallen out of the meta anyways here as of late. But what sort of changes are you expecting to kind of see when it comes to the team compositions for, these next couple of weeks of play?
I think from what I had seen, Surefour made a prediction that he was expecting to see some form of Reinhardt, Sigma. I don't think Sigma's going to go right now because unfortunately, the Diva mobility just isn't worth, I think, the amount of stun that you can get with Sigma. The amount of stun, not with the E and the shield.
Well, I feel like too in that case, the stun is primarily more so because of the Genji prevalence.
Yeah. It depends on if you're playing like a dive-oriented map. Then I think you might see more Diva. But and then from what did he say? Because I have to check. But he was under the assumption that you'll still see a little bit of Genji on some of the more dive-focused maps, but it'll depend on where else. Because I think he was even mentioning some Torbjorn might come out, and I don't know. I might not be able to even find this, but a little bit of Torbjorn possibly, and then Lucio Brig I think is still going to be plenty viable.
Okay.
Yeah, here it is. So yeah, Ryan Sigma, Bap Brig, and then you run either an Ashe Torbjorn or a Genji Torbjorn, depending on specific maps where you might have a Lucio Moira in there as well. And I think the Genji thing is going to depend on them feeling like how confident players are that the armor pack is going to be a good switch off over the nano boost, because we didn't even see that much Anna. We saw a little bit of Anna, but not like a huge amount this last weekend. So it'll depend on if the armor pack is a good switch over. I will say I'm very happy that we get 2 straight weeks of no Orisa and no Mei. I am always happy. Always happy to see to not have to deal with them on my feed.
So for expecting like a ton of Brigida, and if Anna's banned, like, see, part of me just feels like we're gonna get back to that Ashe and the Tracer DPS duo this week. Like, I could understand like the Torbjorn pick, but that would primarily be to dealing with more of the dive composition. So if someone is running like the Echo or the Tracer, I could definitely see that come into play. But to me, like that seems like kind of like an oddball pick otherwise, if you're not trying to get that like half counter to whatever the opposition is running at that time. So those hit scan players this week, with Widow out, surely that means that they have to be gaining some more points because, Widow's basically just finalizing the kills instead of like doing heavy damage in this case. So expect to see quite a bit of Ashe Dynamite damage. Has been pretty prominent. And, you definitely see how much splash damage it's doing when everyone is clumped up. So definitely look, Ons wouldn't be a bad pick this week. All I'm saying, again.
Ons is not a bad pick. You may also see, we saw some teams work in a McCree instead of Widowmaker if they were getting especially damage from flankers. Especially damage from flankers, excuse me. So you might see the McCree come in, but I think it's still going to be pretty solid where you have a hit scan and then a flanker or poker of some kind, where if you're really in dived on, they might switch to the Torbjorn instead. We'll see. I know we always expect dive to come back, but it's never traditional dive. It's always a modified dive of some kind.
It's always one dive DPS and then select your hit scan.
Yes. I'm really hoping that these 2 weeks are a very big display of, hey, here's how bad Ryan's Earth Shatter is. Please boost it back to where it used to be, because you can shatter somebody, and then before you even get to swing at them, they're already back up. So
Right. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the pricing for this current week for the draft royale picks. Obviously, like we've been trying to focus more on some of the budget options out there because when you're selecting your lineup, if you're looking at the DPS, we have DPS players that are getting upwards of like 79 currency on the high end of the scale, and there's a lot of like top DPS that are above that 70 threshold. So if you're playing with, the default score in and the default amount of points that you're able to spend, the average that you can spend per player on the A6-man lineup is 60 currency. So, if you're throwing out like 79 gold on Bird Ring, obviously you're going to be looking for more of a budget option, someone that's more in the middle of the pack. So, we've seen some pretty good things from Agilities. He is only 50 this week, which is a pretty big bargain for, the point totals that we've seen from him. Shockwave for Vancouver has definitely been another interesting pick, but I don't think we've seen like a string of consistent performances from him. He seems like a high risk, high reward type of player, but that's another one that's kind of in a similar position at 53 cost. But here we are again, like Bobble has been silently doing fairly well, and I haven't really seen his cost being adjusted, if at all, because he's only 43 points this week, and London's been not the most dominant team, but APEC has been doing fairly well here.
Yeah, I almost wanted to go. I want to double check because I know that this last week, even though they got stomped by Seoul, although had a really promising Genji, but although only putting up, I think, max 20 points is what the system says. So I'm going to say don't go on that one. I think what we've all learned from this, I don't know, why are you doing that, computer? I think what we've all learned from most of this is that tanks is where you kind of go for your medium budget option and you spend a lot of money on your DPS. I think Rio is especially a really good pick right now. I think Ben Best as well for Paris is going to be somebody that I'm pretty excited about playing.
Yeah, he's 42 points.
I will say what I can't do here, I've seen, I'm hitting a button, that's why. So I see you have Michelle on this list.
I was tentative to even put him on.
Because unfortunately Michelle played one map for Seoul. I think he may have played 2 maps over 2 games, but he did not. He appeared, I think, only when they wanted the Zarya.
Fair point.
And I have to imagine that they're just going to keep. They had Marvel and the Diva like earlier last week, so I'm pretty sure that they're going to keep. I'm pretty sure they're keeping him. They're going to keep, Michelle on the sidelines. But looking through points, I know 2 weeks ago I was super big up on Fate. That didn't really work out. I do think Ben Best is a good pick. What was the other person I was looking?
I mean, if Michelle isn't playing, I know Gesture is about the same cost as well. I think he's only like 1 more point, so he's at 44. So
we also do have Janu from Washington Justice at only 42 points, and they're playing Toronto, so it's not like not like they aren't able to take a map. They did look like they were slightly on the rise during this tournament when they beat the LA Gladiators.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm thinking there might be. Also, I really want to. Poor JMac. JMac is not scoring well at all. So I do think like your best bang for your buck is probably getting Rio and another low scoring tank, or like a low point tank, I would say, because there's a decent amount of available tanks between like 40 and like 55. Because even like Elsa is 53, QOQ is 56. I think probably that's where you could cap if you want to. Gamsu's 52. Like there's okay starting ranges for there, because you really want to splurge if you're gonna like make big money moves. I think it's gonna be on DPS.
Yeah, and I know like a lot of like these support players, like on the lower end, like for the budget options, are more around like that 42 to like 47 range. A couple of them I was looking at was like Sanguinar from the Spitfire and Paintbrush. from the field. The problem is like we've seen like such a huge discrepancy in regards to just the overall cost between some players that we would consider to be on the top tier as opposed to like even like the second tier, and then we got not the best budget option. So it really feels like for the support, that's when you tend to make one of the bigger splashes. So you have like one higher end support, one higher end DPS, and then
Yeah.
you slot in whatever your secondary options are. Depending on how many points you have left. But the tank position is definitely one where you're probably not going to be spending 100 of your total cost. So that would leave you with around 260, give or take, depending on how many points you're actually spending, and if you are hitting like that middle of the run there at like that 50 cost. But I'm really leaning more towards the double APAC tank route, even though
Mhm.
Benbest is probably going to be the most bang for your buck in regards to looking to splurge on a higher end caliber player at another position there.
Or Super is only 36 points.
Oh yeah.
Super's only 36 points. So there's a chance Super actually gets to play consistently. Like, because Orissa's gone. I don't understand. Like, I don't think they would put Smurfin on the Ryan in front of him. They typically haven't.
Well, I mean, this is also, the same super who's been trying to convince Krusty to put him in to play Genji. So,
Oh man, it's. I'm also still trying to get out here. I'm still trying to petition to let to just move hydration to tank at this point.
Mhm.
Who also has decent performances is Shredlock. Shredlock, I think, for the last couple of games has 68, 73, 73, 85.
It's not bad.
Decent performances, and they are playing Paris, which is it gives me a pause to actually start anybody from Vancouver
Don't
for
don't
that
they
game.
play 2 games this weekend? I'm pretty sure they do. I
And
want.
Gladiators.
Okay.
So if we've learned anything, that Gladiators match might be a toss up.
Yeah, the Gladiators have been very polarizing.
They've been bad. You can just say it. They're bad.
Okay, polarizing from what our expectations are. Expect one thing,
Yes.
and then that's what you get.
Am I about to fall in this hole, Totem? Because I'm looking right here and I see. Oh, I had it 1 second. I'm looking at here. Erster's only 35 points.
35 points because he's not playing.
But what if he plays? I know I'm the guy who went on this podcast 3 weeks ago and said, don't play Erster ever. It's never worth it. But what if it's worth it this time? Because what else am I looking at
And then,
here?
and then you're gonna come
Like,
back next week and be like, guys, don't listen to me.
I was wrong. Stitch is really cheap too at 33. Logix is only 39. Really? Great.
Well, that's for that map 1 point total.
Excuse me, D Hulk. I have another gripe to have with you. Bozzy's not even in the league anymore. Why is he rated higher than Ons or Hydration and Logix and stuff?
Yeah, we need an updated master sheet.
Please, Mr. Hulky. I don't know if we have tinkered with this recently either, but yeah, because Stratus is 48. I could see Linkser being a decent pick. There's but of course, if we're going for big money DPS players, who I really like right now, I like Dante a lot because I don't think Dante's ever leaving from that lineup, and it's
Mm-hmm.
against Dallas. So that Dallas Houston game has a lot of potential, I think, to be high scoring. I like Decay because if Decay doesn't carry, like Decay has to carry. That is the new game plan. So I think I like Decay in there a lot. And why is Shui's rated so high? And then I think we're all really. There's a lot of temptation to play the Paris DPS, but I don't really know who we're going to see because as you saw, they're very good at rotating DPS to what fills their needs, and they're playing Vancouver and Toronto. So I don't imagine them having to really get to map 5 to where we'll have to see like a full 3 or 4 maps from each guy.
Right.
Yeah, but Dallas Houston looks like a really good matchup to take advantage of, and then I would also say Valiant Atlanta has a lot of potential. So does So does Atlanta Florida, but that depends on if Atlanta actually shows up this week at all.
Mm. Yeah, that remains to be seen. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how just things shake up these next 2 weeks. Is obviously once we kind of like get our foothold of what this current 2 week meta is. Hopefully, should we stumble a little bit this week, we just learn and then we adjust next week. That's a good thing about these hero pools.
Well, and that's the one good thing is that we can kind of take a read on what's happening at the beginning.
And then if we get it wrong the second time, then we just chalk it up to something else.
We'll blame somebody else. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll blame Canada. That's always the safe bet.
He's not even here, but we have to say it anyway.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look at the lineup for this week. Like the Spark have been another interesting team where, we've seen the changes that they've made and we kind of like expected them at this point to have really started to kind of just put everything together. I still don't think like they've really found their footing at this point, so I've still been trying to shy away from, people who would normally be some of my stable picks, like Bebe, for instance, at the flex support role. And, I would honestly shy away from, like, that Chengdu New York match. Hunters just seem to have a way of just getting 0-3'd by New York every time they play.
And New York hasn't looked particularly great recently either. So
right.
I have a hard time putting stonks into anybody that's not Hacksaw.
Just seeing, like, what else we got? Like, both of those Atlanta games this week are fairly interesting because they face the Valiant and the Mayhem. It's a tough call. I feel like the Valiant Rain match would probably be the better of the two if we're talking about like fantasy potential.
And this is Atlanta's prove it. Like they have to do well in this tournament if they really want to have decent seeding for the end of the year. Them, I mean, I'm just looking. Same with Gladiators. Gladiators have to win against Vancouver, and I am sure Deepe is shoulder checking everybody in that room to make sure that they're ready for that game. By the way, games start on Friday at noon Pacific time for everybody playing Overwatch League Fantasy. So get your lineups in Thursday night. Don't be like me and think you can get it in an hour beforehand because you will not. Games start at noon Pacific time, and we're getting games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Oh boy, full weekend.
Yes, sir. I have another way to slack off at work. Yay.
Well, just means I need to be sure to get the draft up tomorrow.
Giving totem work, yay.
That's all right. But yeah, I was trying to look up what the odds were for some of these matches. They're not up, so good job, Odds Portal. Fantastic. I don't know what happened on that front. So yeah, I can't really gauge what they would consider to be the closest matches on paper, unfortunately, which is, it's whatever. I'll check back later in the week.
Esports are never on time.
No.
Or early. They arrive precisely when they want to.
Yeah. Kind of like the Paris DPS. And, I have to say, like, that Paris tournament win is big for, a number of reasons. One, it's because, Sparkle recently became 18, so, we've seen, his debut in the Overwatch League. We also got to see them make up some ground in the stand-ins because they do get, like, those 3 bonus wins added towards the stand-ins. So, pretty big benefit for them just to see kind of like where they are in the stand-ins now as opposed to, before that tournament. But then again, if everyone has a shot at making the playoffs, it kind of doesn't it like kind of defeat the purpose of like these bonus wins a little?
So I imagine we're gonna do some sort of tournament like how they did last year, like the play-in bracket.
I could see
I really
that.
think that's what they're gonna have to do for that to actually be true. Or if we just get a John Spector tweet on Friday, being like, Boston lost, LOL, no one path to playoffs. Like, and because unfortunately you have to have that as a contingency, because
Hmm.
if not, you like players are already tired and want to go home. So if you just are telling Color Hex and Fusions, hey, you're done for the year, like nothing else you do matters, then like it's not going to be worth it for them to stay in. I do think though that I'm interested to see where Paris goes from here, because there's a lot of temptation, I think, for this to become like Shanghai in stage 3 of season 2, where they pull off, like, where they nail the meta, they pull off this huge win, and like they are incredible for that one stage. And then it's like, okay, well, we don't really know what to do from here. And they kind of slowly tumble back down. So
Right.
Paris definitely has the talent and the coaching to get there. And I really get the sense from Rush and from 9K that they're very determined to like taking this all the way. But I'm not comfortable putting them as a top. They're not a top 4 team yet to me. I would say maybe top 5, maybe 5 or 6, but not top 4.
Well, looking at the standings, they would be fifth in NA, behind
Perfect.
Fusion, Shock. Oh wait, they're fourth. Fusion, Shock, Mayhem, and then Paris.
And all the podcasters slash Mayhem fans are over there dancing in. Well, they're probably not dancing. I hope they're in their homes, but they're what a turnaround. That's the other thing too. I'm wondering, because Florida had a similar thing this last stage where they were
Right.
really good, and then they had a decent Summer Showdown qualifying run, but it wasn't. They weren't as like they weren't as like dominant as I think we all expected them to be afterwards. So it'll be interesting to see if it transfers. And then with APAC, I I mean, if you had to give me money right now, I would still bet Shanghai win that tournament. I think with Guangzhou again, it'll. I'm wondering how Nero and Neptuno transition back in,
Hmm.
because they've already gone on record and said like, yeah, we didn't really play, like, because they have to quarantine, of course, for 14 days before they are able to rejoin the team in Korea. And they both went on record like, yeah, like we didn't really play Overwatch that much
That's why you
while
just
we were in quarantine.
quarantine at the start of the hero pool.
Well, and I think that they were back with the team
Ah, okay.
by the end of the Summer Showdown, but they weren't going to play them because they hadn't had, like, they weren't up to speed. I think I'm even wondering, does Nero come in for Eileen? Do they keep Eileen in there? Char's looked really good in the Brig recently. Do they keep Chara in over Neptuno?
All
Does Spark even
questions.
show up? Does Spark even show up to play any of these games? Like,
Yeah.
it's a big sad if you're architect and you move there to be with your friends, to be with your buddies, and then you just consist, like, when even Soul Dynasty is more consistent than you at this point. It's a little rough.
Yeah, and that's one of the more 50-50 teams out there in the league this
Mm.
season.
Also, Prophet's Genji, really good. Prophet's so good at so many heroes, and then
Except
he pulled
except one in
his echo's
particular.
not great. His echo's not great, but like, it's so funny because he brings up the Genji. I'm like, oh yeah, Prophet also has like an S tier Genji. I forgot.
Yeah, you can play the Tracer, the Genji, but you know, Echo. Forget about it. It's really
Man.
weird how that works. But who knows?
Fleta had a really good tournament. Also, I think just to throw him in there, his Genji was very, very good. Again, Fleta has an S tier Genji. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he have one? Like, APAC definitely seemed like, let's put all the really good Genjis here, and then although I'm like, although had a decent game, but like APAC is still so interesting because I definitely think if you had seen, if you put Chengdu with NA, Chengdu I think would still be top, like would be like 15th, 14th, maybe a little bit higher. Same with the Spark. I think Spark would probably be like 11th or 12th, but it's you just watch them, their records are just getting obliterated by having all these these stacked teams in their immediate vicinity.
Mm-hmm.
So where like they're gonna there's a decent chance that if they get down far enough in like a general tournament when all the teams are mixed, whether I know Lobo and I were speculating they might go to Korea for the grand finals, just because
Mm,
that's somewhere where they can for sure have everybody like quarantined and like good to go and clear.
right.
Because good luck doing that in America right now. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We shall see. I'm excited to see what happens with this hero poll. It's a bummer we're already in the last quarter of the season.
Yeah, that's really crazy to think about. You only have so many more losses to give at this point.
I mean, as long as I show up, I'm still doing better than Bob. So
I mean, that is also true. But really, at the end of the day, the only thing I've been keeping a close eye on is Boston and London, obviously because of the bet I have
Mhm.
with Edinar. And I gotta say, things are looking pretty good. London hasn't been like super strong by any means, but they're at least 50-50. Whereas Boston, they got what, 2 wins to their name?
Well, and the thing with the thing with London is as well. Like I have a bet with a Bosco about if London can make top 10. And I get if they were general, if they were all in like one grouping, he would probably make that bet. He'd probably win. But just
Mhm.
because they're just getting beaten, they have to take turns getting beat by Guangzhou and Shanghai every other week. Like it's lowering the record enough to where I have a chance.
Well, we'll see where the chips fall in that regards. But, that basically covers it for tonight. Obviously, make sure you set your lineups a little bit earlier since we do have those games starting Friday afternoon Pacific time. So keep that in mind. Don't miss out on that because, deadlines are there for a reason and you don't want to miss out on currency or, whatever, depending on, what format you are running or, what website for that matter.
Also, quick note. I think my secret I've learned with the Overwatch League tokens, because I for the longest time had the game on mute while I was listening to like the Avast stream or the leg day stream. I think you have to have the game actually like sounding. It has to have actual sound coming out of it on the Overwatch League website.
Okay.
I think I can't guarantee it. I'm just saying once I had sound on, I got tokens next day. So because I spent 3 weeks trying to get tokens and I had nothing come out of there. So
Yeah, I know a lot of people have been having issues with that. So I don't know.
it's
Like it could
pretty
be any
annoying.
number of
But
things.
I will complain to John Spector as soon as I see him.
Oh, there you go. Well, anyways, let's go ahead, Ramses, and let's close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, please do us a favor and head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. We're always looking for insight on how we can improve the show. And of course, if you leave us a review, we will read it on the air. And like we only got like 1/4 of the season left, so only so many more episodes of this current season because of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are looking to support us and the podcast network directly, you can do so by checking out our Patreon page, where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. So you can find more information on our website of Patreon at patreon.com/OWL network. So you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons in Daniel, Owl, Kesha, Agent Life, and 044 in helping our network grow. It keeps Boston in, the bottom of the barrel. It will get this face on Ed's Twitch when he loses the bet because you know what's gonna happen. But most importantly, it just helps keeps the light on, and it does help with all of the lip-sync costs because podcast hosting, especially on a network, nonetheless, definitely is added up pretty quickly. But anyways, Ramses, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know how they can contact our show?
For sure. If you want to email us, you can find us at contact@owlendshow.com. If you have fantasy questions or if you just want to kind of bully Totem a little bit sometimes, you can find us on Twitter at @owlbythenumbers. Our website is www.owlendshow.com. We have YouTube content with the network, and there's a lot of really good stuff on there that I really recommend checking out on youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We also invite you to join the Owl and Show Discord. Lots of really fun times. I know we kind of do like a live, live chat, but we like react to the games at the same time, and there's a lot of fun discussion going on in there all the time. Right now, we were talking about Guangzhou not only signing Crystal but also being partners with a multi-billion-dollar marketing scheme, so that's
Oh yeah, the pyramid
that's pretty
scheme. I
fun.
remember that. Good week for
Well,
them.
somebody made a point. Somebody made a point as well, though. Like Herbalife sponsors a lot of teams, and not even just Guangzhou. Like they have like whatever team Ronaldo plays for, like has like Herbalife as a primary sponsor. Like they're pretty big around the world. So don't sue us, please, Herbalife. So yeah, so you come hang out with us. We always greet new people as well. It's really fun. At discord.me/owl and show. And then if you're watching live with us right now on Twitch, you already know, but just in case, we are a Twitch affiliate, and you can help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast streams, the network streams pretty regularly. Overwatch League Network with Booger and Anura on Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. I will buy the numbers, as you can see, on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Heroes Never Die, which is our variety Overwatch show, on Wednesdays at 5 p.m., featuring the golden duo of Totem and Ednar. And then Thursdays, Tavern Tales, which is our Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast, airs Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That has a separate Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Tavern Tales. If you guys want to follow stuff for Overwatch, hit us up at twitch.tv/OwlAndShow. And I'm interested to see what you guys have for Tavern Tales, because from what I saw, there's a pretty decent amount of patching, or I guess of new content coming decently soon, correct?
Yeah, they released a ton of patch notes today. So new heroes, some new minions, some returning heroes to the hero pool that also had some tweaks, some buffs, some nerfs, everything kind of like in between. So that should be a pretty eventful show on Thursday. And then, tomorrow, it's been a couple of weeks since we've actually recorded HND, so this is our, it's been 2 weeks, so we got a little bit of news. We kind of, held off because it basically just would have been, a Summer Showdown show last week, and it's just well, we already covered that on OWLN, so we're just go check them out, rather than, double dipping, because it just wouldn't really make any sense there. But anyways, yeah, come check out Tavern Tales if you play Hearthstone Battlegrounds. A lot of fun over there in the tavern. But if
before I was gonna say, let's pour one out for Booger now that he can no longer play Crab Wrecking Ball.
Rip. F's in the chat.
R.I.P. for my boy Booger.
It was short lived. that just basically takes out the one tank that he could play. So
I play with Booger here and there. He's pretty good.
I mean, I only give him crap because I know he probably plays more than all of the hosts combined, so there's that.
Podcasters that still plays more than 2 hours of Overwatch a week.
Oh, there you go. Well, anyways, if you were looking to contact our host, you can do so on social media, primarily on Twitter. You can find Boomer Bob, who recently apparently just launched, a World of Warcraft Classic podcast.
Even more of a boomer move.
Which is on the Bash Those Buttons platform, which is also where your other show is on. I honestly do not remember the name of it. I'm sorry, Bob.
Let me find it for you. It's wow. I honestly want to say it has the word recap in it, because it's not.
No, I think it's Rewind. I think it's Rewind, but I'm not positive. But anyways, so Bob is on Twitter at Blazin.
Reloaded. Okay. Warcraft Reloaded. So
I got part of it right. But anyways, Bob's on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That is BLAZZIN_BOB. Ed also isn't here because, he thought that because I was running late that for some reason we just wouldn't have a show. Joke's on him. But you can find him on Twitter at Edinar83. As for myself, you can follow me on Twitter at TotallyDrunk. And Ramses, where can our listeners contact you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ramses_OW. Although apparently, from the more and more I hear about it, you are apparently some sort of gremlin if you have OW or Overwatch in your Twitter handle. So we'll see if that changes at some point. But yeah, Ramses_OW. And you can find the other show I do at Pushpoint POD, which our episode should be coming out a little bit later this week. Mash Those Buttons has so much going on. I think that with there's so many shows going on that it's been a little bit of a rush for, I think, the editors to get through everything. But
are you saying Jaw is falling behind?
No, Jaw's not falling behind. It's more that Jaw's already lifting 100 pounds. He's give me another 50. So nah, Jaw's praise be to Jaw. Jaw
Mhm.
freaking make sure I have a job in this. Well, not a job, but make sure I have a role in this whole thing. And then I also did a really fun interview with Omnic Weekly, actually, with our friends D and Hannah, and that dropped I think Sunday.
Yeah, I gotta
And
check
we
that out. What you need to do, Ramses, is invite them onto your podcast, but make Hannah stay up until about like 4 o'clock in the morning, like I did.
oh gosh.
Because that's definitely rough with the time differences. But yeah, good
Oh well,
our good friends
they
over
were
there.
they were kind too because they were like, yeah, we're gonna do it at noon your time. Like, you didn't have to do that. Like, that's
Hmm.
sweet. Okay. No, and then we talked about how we did the you hosted the or moderated, excuse me, the Overwatch panel last year for BlizzCon. Well, for Con Before the Storm, and how you're asking us all these Overwatch League questions, and we look at all these World of Warcraft kids who are waiting for the panel that's after us.
Hmm.
Being like, okay, cool. And then Bob's just in the front of the bureau, like, yeah,
Good times.
good times. And I kept stealing D's answers for everything. But
Oh, there you go.
yeah, that's on Omnic Weekly, and I'm excited for I'm excited for this next like month and a half, like 7 weeks of Overwatch that we're gonna get before we go back to the dark times of off season where we wonder what the hell's gonna happen.
Oh man, like, well, you know what? We at least have one saving grace, Ramses, and it's coming up in about 2 months. We got Tony Hawk.
Oh.
that's gonna that's gonna be
Oh
the
man,
thing that keeps us together.
the Tony Hawk podcast, which is gonna be me and Nar talking about ska bands and like 90s one song demo punk bands.
There you go. So stay tuned for all of that, but that will do it for us here tonight on OWL by the numbers. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow for our next episode of Heroes Never Die. So until then, guys, you take care and have a good night.
Later.